Have you ever asked yourself, am I doing enough? Or maybe, am I doing too much? Well, today, we're cutting through all that confusion. We're going to ditch the vague advice and get right to the actual science-backed numbers you need for optimal health.
And you're not alone in asking this. So many of us are tired of hearing things like, just be more active. We want a real target, right? A number we can actually aim for and build our week around. And that's exactly what we're going to uncover.
So where do we even begin? Well, let's start with the official baseline. What are the big health organizations, the ones who study this stuff for a living, say is the absolute minimum we should be doing?
And here it is, the number you've been waiting for. For your general health and to live a longer life, the magic zone is somewhere between 2.5 and 5 hours of moderate exercise every single week. Think of this as the foundation, the ground floor of our health journey.
But here's where it gets interesting. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. See how that target number shifts depending on what you're trying to achieve? If your goal is to really push back against the risk of things like heart disease or diabetes, well, that weekly target bumps up to a more serious 5 to almost 7 hours.
And listen, a truly healthy routine is about more than just getting your heart rate up. The official guidelines are super clear on this. You also need to mix in some muscle strengthening stuff at least twice a week. Lifting weights, body weight exercises, and please don't forget about things like flexibility and balance work. It all matters.
Okay, so we have our baseline numbers, but that begs the question, is more always better? Now let's dig a little deeper and find what I like to call the sweet spot, that perfect point where you get the absolute most bang for your buck.
This is the logical next question, right? If 5 hours is good for you, then 10 hours must be twice as good. It feels like it should be true. But, well, the science on this is actually pretty fascinating and maybe not what you'd expect.
The whole idea is explained by a concept from science called the dose-response curve. Now that sounds super technical, I know, but the idea is actually really simple. It's just a fancy way of talking about diminishing returns. The benefits you get from exercise don't just keep climbing up and up forever.
Now this, right here, is probably the most powerful part of this whole story. The single biggest leap in health benefits you will ever get happens right at the very beginning. Just going from doing nothing to getting in 1 or 2 hours of exercise a week, it is an absolute game changer for your health.
Now, as you build on that momentum, you eventually hit the absolute peak. It's right around this 3 to 4 hour a week mark where study after study shows the greatest reduction in your risk of dying from all causes. This is the sweet spot for longevity.
So what happens if you just keep pushing past that? Well, once you get beyond about 5 hours a week, you start to hit that plateau we talked about. Now, don't get me wrong, you're still getting benefits, absolutely. But the extra health gain you get for each additional hour of work starts to get smaller and smaller. The return on your time investment really starts to drop off.
So, to put a fine point on it, the research is crystal clear. These huge, large-scale studies all confirm the same thing. If your number one goal is living a longer, healthier life, that 3 to 4 hour window is the most efficient, evidence-backed target you can have.
All right, we've got the general rules, and we totally get the idea of a sweet spot. But now for the most important part. How do we take all this great info and build a plan that's actually right for you, personally?
Well, one of the biggest factors, of course, is your age. The recommended weekly hours, they naturally change as we move through life. Younger adults might get the most out of a higher volume, while for older adults, the focus might shift more towards consistency and just maintaining function, with that ideal range landing closer to 2.5 to 3.5 hours.
And it's not just how much time you put in, it's how you spend that time. The intensity really matters. A younger person might thrive on a 60-40 split between moderate and vigorous exercise. But as we get a bit older, that might shift to a safer, more sustainable 80-20 split with a much bigger emphasis on that moderate activity.
Now, if you're looking at all this from square one, the key is to not try to jump into 5 hours a week right away. That's just a recipe for burnout or getting hurt. Instead, try this simple plan. First, be honest about where you are right now. Then start small, like really small, maybe just 30 minutes a day. And then just add 5 minutes to your workouts each week. It's safe, it's sustainable, and it's how you build real momentum. But what if you're on the complete opposite end of the spectrum? What if you're already flying past that 5 hour mark? If you're a really fit person who just loves to train, is there any real point in pushing the volume even higher? Let's see what the science says about that.
For this group,
The goal usually shifts from just longevity to peak performance. And the big question becomes, does piling on more volume keep improving those key fitness markers? Specifically, does it keep boosting your VO2 max, which is basically just a measure of how efficiently your body can use oxygen?
You know, you'd think the answer would be complicated, but the research on this is surprisingly consistent. Study after study shows that for people who are already quite fit, those VO2 max gains really tend to level off. Doubling your training volume often gives you almost no additional gain. Performance just kind of plateaus after a few hours of really focused, intense work each week.
But, and this is a really important but, that doesn't mean the extra training is useless. Not at all. While your VO2 max might not be budging, high-volume training can still improve other really crucial performance factors. It can boost your lactate threshold so you can go harder for longer, build muscular endurance, and even help you recover faster.
So here it is, the big takeaway from all of this. We have to stop looking for one single magic number. The truly optimal amount of exercise, it isn't a number at all. It's your own personalized zone, and it's defined by your age, your current fitness level, and what you're actually trying to accomplish.
So, we've laid out the whole framework. You know the baseline, you know where the sweet spot is, and you know how to make it personal. The only question left is for you. Now that you have this roadmap, what is the one small change you are going to make this week to start finding your optimal zone?